A girl taunts a boy, demanding he entertain her with his frustrated, pathetic face. For the boy, just being childhood friends with her was bad enough. At that moment, he felt something inside him snap. Ryua Takahashi is no ordinary girl, she's a super popular idol. She is also the granddaughter of the chairman of the massive Teikai Group, a corporation that controls Japan. With wealth and power far beyond ordinary people, she is like a picture-perfect princess. In stark contrast is Kazuma Suzuki, a gloomy and plain boy with no friends or girlfriend, a social outcast. His only distinguishing feature he feels is that he's childhood friends with the great Ryua Takahashi. Kazuma has always lived in Ryua's shadow. He doesn't desire to be special like her, he just wants a normal life with friends and maybe a girlfriend. He once told Ryua about this simple wish, and her response was unforgettable. Ryua had called him stupid, telling him a social outcast should know his place. She claimed his only value was being her childhood friend, an opportunity that had used up all his good fortune. She relentlessly told him to know his place based on his birth, know his limits, and stay in his lane. Her words have weighed on him like a curse ever since. Still, yearning for a normal life, he welcomed the spring of his first year of high school. One day, he received a text from Ryua, inviting him to karaoke with Archer and others. Kazuma read the invitation, noting that Archer Hiragi was a flashy gyro. He'd never even spoken to her, but Ryua's text seemed to offer a path forward. She suggested he join her elite group to get friends and a girlfriend. Believing this was his chance to change, he decided to go. Wanting to change, Kazuma gathered his courage, visited a hair salon and dressed up as best he could. He headed to the karaoke club and opened the door. He was ready to become a new version of himself. The moment he stepped inside, the room erupted in laughter. The group mocked him for actually showing up, calling him gross and making fun of his new haircut. Others ridiculed his jacket and the smell of the salon. Ryua feigned telling them to stop, barely containing her glee. Archer watched in silence. Kazuma stood frozen, realizing the whole event was a setup to humiliate him. Ryua approached Kazuma, asking what was wrong. Ryua gleefully offered him 10,000 yen to cry. He quietly asked what he had done. He wondered what could be so bad that he deserved this treatment. She declared that the reason was obvious, he was her slave and his purpose was to entertain her. The truth hit Kazuma with full force. Having a childhood friend like her was truly awful. At that moment he felt the sound of their supposed bond breaking. Kazuma looked at her calmly. He told her he felt the same way and that their friendship was over. Ryua was stunned into silence for a moment. She then erupted in disbelief, demanding to know who he thought he was to say such a thing. She furiously told him he didn't have the right to do this. She insisted that she could hate him, but he couldn't hate her. He reflected on the absurdity of a top idol thinking this way. He slammed his hand on the table. Kazuma turned to leave, stating he had said what he needed to. The others called him lame and told Ryua not to worry about him. Yacha looked on with concern, trying to call out to him. After he left, someone noticed the solid marble table was broken. The group was shocked, wondering if Kazuma could have done it, but quickly dismissed the idea. They tried to reassure a visibly shaken Ryua. Ryua screamed after him, vowing she would never forgive him for ending their friendship. Kazuma simply sighed and kept walking. Walking away, Kazuma felt strangely refreshed. The scenery seemed brighter than usual. He decided he would rather spend his high school life alone than grovel before that beast in human clothing. From now on, things would be different. He no longer had to live as her shadow. For the first time, he felt truly free. That night at a grand mansion, chairman of Teikai Group and headmaster of Teikai Academy, Takahashi Tezo, was working in his office. He greeted his granddaughter, Ryua, warmly as she entered. Ryua immediately began complaining about how mean Kazu had been. She told her grandfather that Kazu wanted to end their friendship. Her cousin, Takahashi Sakura, calmly asked if it was true, suggesting he was probably just bored. Ryua insisted it was true, upset that he'd never stood up to her before. Sakura pressed, asking if Ryua had said something terrible to him. Ryua defensively admitted she'd only said things like he was her slave and that being his friend was awful. Her grandfather and Sakura both agreed that it was only natural for Kazuma to be angry. Ryua protested that she was only teasing. She found it weird that he suddenly wanted friends and a girlfriend, though Sakura thought it was quite normal. Ryua screamed that it wasn't normal. Ryua argued that it was ridiculous for Kazuma to want other people, especially other girls when he had her. She claimed that because Kazu has her and she understands him more than anyone else, her teasing was just a bit mean. With tears in her eyes, she confessed that she loved him. Hearing this, her doting grandfather immediately agreed with her, declaring that Kazuma was in the wrong. Sakura suggested that if Ryua wanted to make up, she should be the one to apologize, but Ryua flatly refused. She demanded that Sakura, as Kazuma's mentor, fix the situation by making him apologize, tell her he loves her and kiss her. Sakura mused that a kiss might be too much. Her great uncle confirmed his plan to make Kazuma into Ryua's husband, which is why he assigned Sakura to mentor him. Sakura agreed, stating she'd never seen anyone with talent like his. Since elementary school, Kazuma had deliberately kept his grades average to remain Ryua's shadow, knowing his true abilities would cause an uproar. Furthermore, he was incredibly popular with girls, though unaware of it, as Sakura had been transferring away any who got too close. The chairman agreed that this talent made Kazuma worthy of being the heir to the Teikai group. Sakura considered the implications. If Kazuma no longer needed to suppress his abilities, things in sports, academics, and even romance could get very complicated. The next morning at school, Kazuma arrived to find his desk and chair missing, replaced by a sign reading "No seat for you LOL." The other students whispered and jeered, commenting that he'd tried to defy Princess Ryua. He now knew for sure that his childhood friend was the worst kind of person there is. In this situation, he had two typical options. The first was to return the desk and attend class quietly. The second was to go to the staff room, an option he knew was pointless at Teikai Academy. Teikai Academy, also known as the S-Class Academy, cultivates top talent from across the nation in various fields. This creates a caste system where the talented are the upper class and ordinary people are the lower class. This system controls the school both subtly and blatantly. The most influential person in Teikai is Princess Ryua Takyashiki, and her grandfather is the headmaster. Complaining to the staff room would be useless, as the teachers are all on her side. The outcome was clear, leaving Kazuma to decide whether to submit or not. Having already decided to live alone, Kazuma saw a third option. He took out a pen and wrote a message on the sign. He stated that since this was an order from Takeashiki-san, he would study by himself and his attendance should be handled accordingly, signing his full name. The other students were shocked, wondering if it was okay to defy Princess Ryua like that. To avoid any further trouble, Kazuma decided to find somewhere out of sight. He noticed a door that seemed to lead to a secluded area. He found a staircase leading down to the underground library, a secret place that most students and even teachers didn't know about. He decided it was the perfect place to kill time during classes. He just wanted to live a normal life. Since he had defied Ryua, he resolved to at least live peacefully by himself. However, upon opening the door, he was met with the sight of a girl in her underwear, caught in the middle of changing. The girl let out a piercing scream. It seemed to echo throughout the entire school. At that moment, Kazuma still didn't know about the beginning of his attempt to live a normal life with girls who were anything but. His days could never be called peaceful. Meanwhile, Ryua sat confidently humming to herself, certain he would come crying and apologizing to her soon. On her popular YouTube channel, the idol Takyashiki Ryua, known as Princess Ryua, greets her 1.9 million subscribers. She decides to talk about things that have been annoying her lately, starting with a story about going to karaoke with some classmates, clarifying it was only girls. Ryua complains to her viewers about a rude girl in the group who was a total buzzkill, looking grumpy before walking out. She offers some advice to her darling minions to not crush the mood when everyone else is having fun. Changing the subject, she excitedly announces her new gig. She reveals she'll be releasing a CD with the rising Seiyuu star, Minato Amen, who attends the same high school. She plugs an upcoming free event at Shine Mall before signing off. The comment section below fills with messages of support, but also disdain for her partner, Minato Amen, who they see as a nobody. Back in the underground library, Kazuma apologizes for the intrusion and introduces himself as Suzuki Kazuma. The girl, flustered, also apologizes for yelling and introduces herself as Minato Amen. Kazuma admits he should have knocked first and asks if she also heard about this place from a library committee member. Kazuma muses that it makes sense he wasn't the only one told about this place. After she finishes changing, Minato peeks out from behind the door and tells him he can come in now. Kazuma enters the room and asks Minato why she's in gym clothes and changing in such a secluded spot. She explains that she was looking for a place to practice her singing and dancing. Flustered, she then reveals that she's actually a seiyuu and has a duet concert coming up. Kazuma realizes she must be in the performing arts track. He notes that his school is full of artists, including his former childhood friend, and that Minato must be one of the special students. He asks if she brought the large mirror herself and if she skipped class. Minato sadly explains that when she arrived at school, her desk and chair had been moved to the hallway. A cruel note had been left, telling her there was no place for her. The story sounds familiar to Kazuma. He understands now why she was crying earlier. His phone then erupts with a stream of messages from Ryua. She taunts him about her video and demands he get back to class and apologize on his knees. Without hesitation, Kazuma blocks her. Kazuma asks Minato why someone would do that to her. She dejectedly calls herself a failure as a seiyuu, with nothing remarkable about her. Kazuma disagrees, telling her that her voice is really cute. He compares it to the sound of a bell, soft and easy to listen to, leaving her stunned by the compliment. Minato remains unconvinced, saying she is nothing compared to idols like Takashi Ryua. She reveals that she believes the bullying started right after the announcement of her duet with Ryua. Kazuma recalls seeing comments on Ryua's video from fans saying she shouldn't be paired with someone who drags her down. Kazuma bluntly asks how someone like her ended up doing a duet with that pig. Minato is shocked by his harsh words. Kazuma apologizes for saying it aloud, clarifying he was talking about Takashi Ryua. Panicked, Minato urges him to be careful, warning that speaking ill of Ryua is dangerous at their school. She explains that the duet was the agency's decision. Minato explains that because she and Ryua are in the same agency and school, she was deemed perfect to be her support on stage. Kazuma realizes their agency must be Teikai Music. He knows they'd do anything to promote Ryua, especially since her grandfather is the president of the parent company. He concludes the bullying was probably Ryua's doing, a reaction to the agency's decision. Minato says she doesn't mind just being a supporter, grateful that they gave her a chance. With newfound determination, she declares that she wants to do everything she can to not drag Ryua down. Kazuma is impressed by her positive attitude, telling her he thinks it's pretty cool. He then offers to help her with her practice. He clarifies that he can only offer the perspective of a complete novice but would like to try if she doesn't mind. Minato is surprised by his offer. She accepts, grabbing his hand. With a radiant smile, she thanks him very much. As he looks at her, Kazuma wonders if she's cuter than that pig Ryua. Later, during a break, he decides to bring Minato some water, knowing she's been rehearsing all morning. As he walks down the hall, a sharp voice calls out, telling him to stop right there. It's Ryua and she's furious, demanding to know where he's been and why he's skipping class. She reminds him that she hasn't forgotten he blocked her and declares that he is not allowed to ignore her. As Kazuma tries to walk past, she and her entourage step in his way. One of Ryua's followers grabs Kazuma's shoulder, telling him to show some respect. Kazuma recognizes the student from the baseball club. He internally scoffs that the student should be training instead of acting as Ryua's lackey, thinking he could learn from Minato. The student notices Kazuma's defiant look. He angrily grabs his collar, demanding he say something. The student throws a punch, but it whiffs past Kazuma, connecting with nothing. Confused, he looks up to see Kazuma now standing behind him, emanating a dark and intimidating aura. The student, Asano, is baffled as to how Kazuma got behind him. The onlookers whisper among themselves, unsure if he missed or is just weak. Kazuma calmly asks Asano what's wrong, suggesting he should hit the gym more. Enraged by the insult, Asano yells in frustration. Just as the fight is about to escalate, Ryua screams for them to stop. She marches forward and declares that she is the only one who gets to mess with Kazu. She tells the others they can only tase him when she allows it and orders them to know their place. The hallway falls silent. Kazuma calmly gets Ryua's attention. Expecting praise, she turns to him with a brilliant smile. Instead, he coldly asks if she seriously thinks her behavior makes her look cool. He then tells her that no one in the world has the right to bully or be bullied. With an intense glare, Kazuma adds that this is especially true when it comes to him. He warns her not to mess with him again before walking away. Stunned, Ryua's heart pounds as she finds herself thinking he's cool, collapsing to her knees as her followers rush to help. 1 week later, Minato is practicing her dance routine on a rooftop. She missteps and begins to wobble, losing her balance. Just as she's about to fall, Kazuma swoops in and catches her. He tells her not to mention it, reminding her she can't get hurt before the big show. Minato remarks that it's amazing how he always seems to show up right when she's about to fall. He dismisses it as nothing special. Minato insists that his help is a big deal to her. She tells him he doesn't know how much all the support and protection he's given her means. With genuine gratitude, she thanks him again. Kazuma is taken aback by her sincerity. He realizes it's the first time anyone has ever said something like that to him. Kazuma suggests she'd have better balance if she didn't turn when moving to center stage, but she argues that she won't stand out. Kazuma then gets an idea: she could jump back to stay in the spotlight. She dismisses this as impossible, given the 5-meter distance. He tells her to watch as he demonstrates how to do it by putting power into his knees. With a powerful push, Kazuma slides backwards across the floor, covering the distance with surprising grace and ease. Minato watches in utter shock. He lands perfectly and asks if it looked easy. Minato vehemently denies that it looked easy. She asks how he managed a move that seemed to defy gravity, guessing he must have top grades in PE. Kazuma calmly replies that he's gotten straight 3s, perfectly average grades, in every subject since elementary school. Kazuma points out another issue: her posture. Minato admits her instructor always tells her she slouches like a cat. Instead of telling her to fix it, Kazuma suggests she lean into it. He demonstrates a cat-like pose. He tells her to try it while she dances. Minato tries out the new cat-themed choreography. Watching her, Kazuma can't help but think to himself that she is incredibly cute. After practice, Minato feels she's got the rhythm down. Excited, Kazuma suggests they tell the costume designer to prepare cat ears and a tail for her. However, Minato's expression falls, and she apologetically says she can't do that for the duo performance. Minato explains that a cat theme wouldn't match with Ryua, and that she's just the support girl. Kazuma asks if she's okay with that. She says yes, revealing that singing and dancing were never her real goal anyway, and this was just acting practice. With a bright smile, Minato declares that she is a seiyuu, and all she truly wants to do is voice anime characters. She explains that she's worked so hard on this performance in the hopes that it could someday help her. She hopes it could help her voice acting career. Listening to her, Kazuma thinks about what a positive person she is. Kazuma is struck by how lively Minato becomes when she talks about voice acting. He quietly murmurs that he'd like to have a passion like that too. He admits to her that he doesn't have any dreams or goals. She asks if there's nothing he wants to be in the future. He explains that he just wants to be someone ordinary that he can be proud of, not someone special. Minato smiles brightly, reassuring him that he's fine and can be as normal as he wants to be. Touched, Kazuma thanks her. Seeing her chance, Minato says there's something she wanted to ask him. She hesitantly asks if the recent fight between him and Ryua was her fault. Kazuma quickly reassures her that it wasn't. She then asks if she's getting in the way of their childhood friendship. Kazuma states plainly that he and Ryua aren't childhood friends anymore, so she doesn't need to worry. Minato breathes a sigh of relief. Hearing this, Minato shyly calls him by his first name, Kazuma-kun. Gathering her courage, she begins to ask him if he would maybe like to. But before she can finish, the door to the room is thrown open with a loud bang. A menacing, shadowy Ryua stands in the doorway, her voice trembling with rage. She demands to know what the losing heroine is doing alone with her Kazu. Minato can only tremble in fear at the sight of her. A blonde girl bursts into the library, having heard Kazuma was inside. She is enraged to find him with another girl, demanding to know what's going on. She immediately unleashes a torrent of insults, calling the other girl a stupid, unpopular, trash voice actress. She questions why Kazuma would vanish after school, just to meet with someone she deems gloomy, ugly, and hopeless. Overcome with emotion, she breaks down into tears, screaming that she hates the situation. The blonde girl Ryua continues her rant, questioning why Kazuma is standing next to this trash girl instead of her. The dark-haired girl apologizes to Ryua, explaining that it's all her fault and that Kazuma was just helping her. This only seems to anger Ryua more as she closes in on her menacingly. Ryua formally addresses the girl as Suzuki-kun, telling her to know her place. She insults her appearance, calling her a forehead-cutting weirdo, and declaring that getting close to Kazuma is a million years too soon. Convinced she's ugly, Ryua lifts the girl's bangs to expose her face. Ryua is visibly shocked by what she sees. She demands to know if the girl has shown her face to Kazuma yet. Before she can do anything else, Kazuma steps in, telling her to stop. Ryua dismisses his concern, retorting that the girl is just a support role anyway. Kazuma defends the girl, telling Ryua that this sidekick trains like crazy every day and warns her not to get in the way. Ryua is hurt, asking why he's taking her side when he's supposed to be her childhood friend. Kazuma coldly reminds her that they aren't childhood friends anymore, just as he told her before. Ryua tries to brush off her behavior, claiming it was just a joke and asking if he's still mad about the other day. He tells her that as a high schooler, she should know the difference between right and wrong and that she is the one who needs to learn her place. Stunned into silence, Ryua can only watch as Kazuma turns his back on her. He tells Minato they should leave. As they walk away, Ryua shouts after Kazuma, calling him an idiot and insisting that she's much cuter than a trash-tier voice actress like Minato. Once outside, Minato apologizes, blaming herself for Ryua's anger. Kazuma tells her not to apologize, explaining that she's actually given him a great idea. He plans to exploit Ryua's oversized pride to throw her off her game. He devises what he calls the Amon Nyan dance operation. Later, at a family restaurant, Kazuma presents Minato with a set of black cat ear pins. He then asks if she has a YouTube channel. He suggests she wear the ears and upload a video of her cat dance, so it will attract attention. Minato is hesitant, admitting her channel has very few subscribers. Kazuma reassures her that with her dance, it will be fine and that she should trust him. He also suggests that when she records the video, she should consider lifting her bangs. He tells her she's seriously cute, and that it would be a waste to keep her face hidden. Minato explains her insecurity, admitting she's scared of people looking at her and can only relax behind her bangs. She feels it suits her support role image, at least until her group disbands. Kazuma thinks to himself that she should have gone solo from the start. She reveals her current group is just a publicity stunt that will disband after one CD. Minato feels outmatched, explaining that their agency is owned by Ryua's grandfather. She questions if going up against someone like Ryua is really okay. Kazuma reflects on how the industry crushes those who stand out. Kazuma realizes it's no wonder she lost her confidence, having been surrounded by such people at school and in showbiz. Minato points out that he and Ryua are childhood friends and that Ryua likes him a lot. He then tells her that she can just call him Kazuma. Flustered, Minato agrees to call him Kazuma-kun and asks if he would call her Amin. He agrees, calling her Amin-chan. Overcome with emotion, she briefly collapses onto the table. Rallying, she clutches the cat ears and promises to do her best for the video shoot. On her YouTube channel, Amin, now wearing cat ears, nervously introduces herself as a voice actress. She announces that she will be performing her original Amon Nyan dance and shyly asks viewers to watch until the end. Amin performs her dance, a series of cute, cat-like poses and movements. At the end of her dance, Amin announces that she'll be performing the song live at an event that Sunday. Meanwhile, Kazuma watches the video at home, thinking it's cute. He sees some hate comments, but also some from genuine viewers. He decides to check out her channel, telling himself it's just for information gathering. In response, Ryua posts a video to her own channel titled Ryuaheim Strikes Back. In it, she furiously screams Kazuma's name over and over, calling him an idiot and demanding to know why he doesn't notice how amazing she is. After her outburst, Ryua's demeanor completely changes. She greets her viewers with a cheerful wink, claiming her previous tirade was just emotional expression acting. She explains it was to channel some recent frustrations. She considers going all in on acting and signs off as the super-motivated Ryuaheim. Watching on his phone, Kazuma is utterly bewildered by the bizarre performance. Kazuma resolves that if that's how she wants to play, he will crush her without holding back. He notes the massive gap in views. Ryua's video has tens of thousands, while Amin's has only around 50. The difference in recognition is undeniable. Still, Kazuma believes in the cuteness of Amin's Nyan dance, convinced it will go viral if people just see it. He decides that his task is to make that happen. He gets on his laptop and types a message to share the video. Kazuma acknowledges that in real life he's a plain, gloomy introvert with no friends. Online, however, it's a different story. As the vice leader of a large clan in a mobile game, he has a network he can leverage. A few days later, Amin's video has exploded in popularity. It has reached 500,000 views in just 3 days. Amin is in disbelief, asking Kazuma what he did. He humbly says he just helped spread it around a little. He insists that the video wouldn't have gone viral if it wasn't great to begin with, crediting her talent. Amin is overjoyed. She tells Kazuma that someone she didn't even know just told her they're coming to the event. Kazuma notes that Ryua has also been aggressively promoting her event, so many students from their academy will likely be there. He thinks to himself that all that's left is for her to take the bait. Ryua storms in again, this time wearing cat ears herself. She announces triumphantly that she is here again, Naya. Kazuma thinks to himself that he's hooked her. Ryua declares that she saw Amin's dumb video. She insists that if they're playing by the same rules, there's no way someone like Amin could beat her. Ryua declares that the Sunday event will be a cat ear showdown to prove who is the real cutest and most popular. Kazuma observes her, knowing she would react this way because they were childhood friends. With everything now in place, he thinks, the rebellion against the top idol can begin. On the day of the event at Shine Mall, Kazuma finds Amin in her performance outfit. She calls out to him, but he urges her to wait, pointing out that the dressing room is in the other direction. Inside, Amin notes that Ryua is in the main dressing room. Ryua can be heard complaining to her manager that she doesn't want to breathe the same air as that nobody. Kazuma mutters that pig under his breath and leads Amin to a quieter spot. He reassures her that it's better this way so they won't be interrupted, telling her to be confident as he's watched her practice every day. Amin asks Kazuma why he's going to such lengths for someone like her. He ponders the question. He then explains his frustration with their suffocating school environment, where the discrimination against non-scholarship students is too obvious. He believes that if someone like her, who isn't a scholarship student, could shine, it could open a hole in the wall the school has built. His primary motivation, he says, was simply seeing how hard she was trying and wanting to cheer her on. Kazuma remembers something and pulls out a new set of cat ears he made for her. He explains that he wanted to find something that would suit her best and figured it would be faster to make it himself. Touched, Amin thanks him and, putting on the ears, promises to do her best. Kazuma tells her that's not how to wear them. He gently pats her head, adjusting her bangs to reveal her full face. He smiles, saying he knew this look would be better on her. Amin is flustered by the sudden change. Kazuma recalls a time he tried to change his own hairstyle after being invited to karaoke. He had hoped to feel like a new person, but everyone just pointed and laughed. He tells Amin that she is different. He tells her with conviction that she is absolutely someone who can shine. He says it's because she has a big dream and has worked incredibly hard to chase it. Just then, a staff member knocks on the door, telling Minato she's up. Kazuma tells her to go out there. He extends his hand to her, smiling as he tells her to steal every last one of that pig-faced idol's fans. Amin takes his hand, her face beaming with newfound confidence, and agrees. With a determined cry of "Here I go," Amin heads for the stage, ready to shine without any enemies holding her back. On a large outdoor stage, the top idol Princess Ryua greets an adoring crowd, thanking them for coming. The fans cheer wildly, calling her their princess and complimenting how cute she looks in her cat ears. Ryua announces that it's the debut event for her new unit, Princess Ryua and her cheerful servants. As she prepares to sing their debut song, she decides she should probably introduce the other members. She calls out the name Minato Amin to the crowd. On stage, a nervous Minato Amin introduces herself to the audience, asking them to please take care of her. From the crowd, Kazuma looks on in surprise. The audience is immediately captivated by Amin, calling her super cute. This reaction infuriates Ryua, who internally fumes that she is the superior performer. Trying to regain control, Ryua announces they will begin. As the performance gets underway, the crowd's attention is fixed on Amin, leaving a visibly annoyed Ryua in her shadow. The audience can't help but notice that Amin's voice and dancing are better than Ryua's. Watching from the crowd, Kazuma thinks to himself that for Ryua this is a total loss. Kazuma reflects on the reason for Amin's success. While Ryua was likely playing around, Amin was practicing relentlessly. Kazuma believes the match was decided long ago. He recalls how Ryua, jealous of the girl who went viral, had inadvertently stepped into Amin's arena. He sees a parallel between Ryua's current situation and his own past. He thinks about how Ryua was naively dragged into a competition on turf that wasn't her own. This reminds him of a similar experience he once had. As the performance continues, Kazuma notices something is starting. He spots several serious-looking men speaking into earpieces as they head backstage. Realizing their intent, he decides it's time for him to make a move. Backstage, a man in a suit grows frantic, unable to reach anyone on his phone. He decides he must do something before the song ends. He resolves to drag Amin off the stage himself. Just then Kazuma appears, coolly asking who exactly he plans on dragging off stage. The man turns, shocked to find Kazuma standing there. His shock turns to horror as he sees a pile of his unconscious colleagues on the floor and demands to know who Kazuma is. Kazuma calmly identifies the man as a servant of the Takashi family. He correctly guesses the man was ordered to sabotage Amin if she didn't serve as a proper foil for Ryua. The servant is stunned into silence, wondering how he could possibly know that. Without another word, Kazuma swiftly strikes the man, knocking him unconscious. He coldly remarks on the carelessness of the orders and questions if the quality of the Takashi family's servants has fallen so far. Kazuma looks out at the stage, satisfied that it's safe for now. He is determined that no one will ruin Amin's big moment, which she worked so hard for. He knows it's too late for sabotage anyway. The audience has already seen her shine and heard her voice. As Amin shines brilliantly on stage, Kazuma watches from the side, convinced that her brilliance can no longer be stopped by anyone. From the crowd, Kazuma shouts words of encouragement to Amin. Hearing his voice, Amin's eyes fill with tears of gratitude, while Ryua is enraged to see him cheering for her rival. In her shock and anger, Ryua missteps. She takes a spectacular tumble on stage. Despite the mishap, the event is ultimately deemed a huge success. The next day, Kazuma sees that all the major news sites are praising Ryua's debut, making no mention of her fall or Amin's performance. He cynically attributes this to Takai Music's dirty work behind the scenes. Kazuma knows that true brilliance can't be hidden. In the age of social media, the truth will spread. He sees Amin being swarmed by classmates who saw videos of her performance and are praising her. Watching her get the recognition she deserves, Kazuma smiles, genuinely happy for her. He muses that with Amin becoming so popular, it will be harder for Ryua to interfere. He imagines Ryua must be frustrated after embarrassing herself online. With her talent and dedication, he's certain Amin's popularity will only continue to grow. Kazuma decides that someone like him, who openly clashes with the powerful Ryua, would only get in her way. He resolves to quietly step aside and watch her shine from a distance. As he turns to leave, Amin notices him. Amin calls out to Kazuma, pushing through her new admirers to reach him. She shyly wishes him a good morning, and he awkwardly returns the greeting. She looks at him with determination, ready to say something important. Amin asks Kazuma if he would help her practice again after school. Confused, he reminds her the event is over, but she explains that a different agency invited her to audition for an anime. She's considering changing agencies to one that will give her work as a voice actress, not an idol. She eagerly tells him that this time, she wants to practice acting with him. When Kazuma starts to call her Amin-chan, she stops him by placing a finger on his lips. She tells him she doesn't like that name. Leaning in close in the crowded hallway, Amin tells Kazuma that she wants him, and only him, to call her Amin-nyan. The other students look on in shock. Watching from afar, Ryua erupts in fury, screaming about what Amin is doing to her Kazuma. Kazuma, flustered by Amin's boldness, asks if lifting her bangs changed her personality. Amin smirks and suggests that perhaps it did. Amin closes the distance between them, wrapping her arms around Kazuma. She tells him that if she has changed, it's his fault because he was the one who lifted her bangs, and now he needs to take responsibility. The shock is too much for Ryua, who promptly collapses. Other students cry out in alarm, shouting for someone to call an ambulance for the fallen princess. After Amin's successful event, June rolled in. Since then, her fame has skyrocketed, leaving her incredibly busy between her new gigs and school. The incident at the school entrance created a bit of a buzz, but things eventually quieted down. Kazuma reflects on his now peaceful life, despite being labeled as the shady loner somehow connected to both Ryua and Amin. Nearby, a classmate named Asano loudly proclaims that he could die happy if he could just go on a date with a girl named Ayacha. The girl, Ayacha Hiragi, teases Asano for being desperate for a girlfriend. Another student chimes in, suggesting Ayacha is only saying that because Ryua keeps rejecting Asano, but he insists his affections are for Ayacha. Asano's friends continue to praise Ayacha, calling her gorgeous and a top-tier scholarship student in the elite dance program. As Asano gushes, Ayacha cuts him off, stating that she already has a boyfriend. A friend confirms that Ayacha is dating a college student, leaving Asano stunned. Ayacha tells him to give up, as she isn't interested in guys without a car or money. When Asano desperately offers to buy her tea, she scoffs at the idea. Showing off a new designer bag, Ayacha boasts that it would take 1,000 cups of tea to match its value. As the group laughs about her priorities being money and looks, Kazuma watches them. He identifies the obnoxious group as the school's elite clique of scholarship students. Kazuma wonders if they even realize they're occupying someone else's desk as a girl with glasses stands nervously nearby. He sees she is clutching a book he recognizes as a rare find. He returned to the library. He's glad someone found it, saving it from gathering dust in the archives. He thinks about how she must be eager to sit down and read the book. As he watches, he decides to intervene, calling out to Hiiragi. Kazuma walks up to the group and calmly tells Hiiragi that she's not at her desk and should let its owner have it. Hiiragi stares at him, her surprise quickly turning to anger. Hiiragi snaps at him, calling him a gross loner and telling him not to speak to her. Kazuma points out that the bell is about to ring, but she retorts that she can do as she pleases until then. He recognizes her stubborn, icy glare and concludes that she must hate him. He decides there's nothing he can do about that. Deciding to take matters into his own hands, Kazuma wordlessly sweeps Hiiragi off her feet and carries her away, leaving their classmates speechless. Hiiragi is left stunned and blushing. Kazuma carries her across the classroom and places her at an empty desk. Finally regaining her senses, Hiiragi explodes with rage, demanding to know what Kazuma thinks he's doing. She calls him a gloomy loner and Ryua's lapdog. At that exact moment, Ryua herself enters the classroom with a cheerful morning greeting. Ryua senses the tension and asks what's going on. She approaches Hiiragi, asking if her Kazu did something. Hiiragi nervously denies it. Kazuma cuts in, telling Ryua for what feels like the 100th time that he doesn't belong to her. Kazuma looks at her coldly and states that they are just strangers now. His words hit Ryua hard. She looks at him with tear-filled eyes, asking why he has to be so cruel. Ryua tearfully accuses him of siding with Amen, declaring how much she cares for him. Unmoved, Kazuma reminds her that he stands with those who put in the effort. As the bell rings, Kazuma walks back to his desk, feeling a sense of relief. He thinks that he has finally cut ties with Ryua and regained his freedom. He has no intention of supporting a spoiled person and resolves to live like a normal high schooler, starting with finding a part-time job. Kazuma believes that earning his own money through hard work is a noble pursuit. While looking for his first part-time job, he spots a well-paying opening at a maid and butler cafe. The idea reminds him of his time in middle school, when he was forced to work at Ryua's estate and was drilled in the art of service by the head maid. Figuring he can use his past experience, he applies for the job despite the distance. He's hired on the spot by the cheerful manager, who tells him he can start that weekend. The manager compliments Kazuma on his polite and serious demeanor. She explains that the cafe is small and he'll be one of only 2 people on the floor. She reassures him that he'll be working with a very dependable senior. She describes his senior as kind and easy to talk to. On his first day, Kazuma arrives at the cafe, hoping his dependable senior is a nice person. He enters and introduces himself as Suzuki, the new part-timer. A maid inside is startled by his voice and drops her broom in surprise. The maid turns around, and to their mutual shock, it's Acha Hiiragi. She can't believe that the new part-timer, Suzuki, is the very same boy from her class. Hiiragi recalls Kazuma's words about supporting people who work hard. Taking it as a personal challenge, she resolves to do her best for him, viewing this as a test of her love. A young woman in a maid outfit expresses her disbelief and frustration. She declares that it's the worst-case scenario, as she has been hiding her job from everyone. Of all people to discover her secret, it had to be her junior, a fact she refuses to accept. Kazuma breaks the silence, asking why she's so quiet. The maid, Hiiragi, defensively challenges him, asking if he finds it ridiculous that she's working in such an outfit, and tells him to laugh if he wants to. Kazuma calmly asks why. He wonders why he would ever laugh at someone who is working so hard. Flustered by his unexpected response, Hiiragi tries to dismiss her efforts. She claims she's only working because the pay is good, but Kazuma sees she has cleaned quite thoroughly. He mentions details like the areas behind light fixtures and under furniture. He notes that her red hands are clear proof of her hard work with water, though she tries to deny it. Kazuma continues his praise, calling her work impressive and noting that even her knees are dirty from scrubbing hard-to-reach places and mopping. Overwhelmed by the compliments, Hiiragi simply calls him annoying. Composing herself, Hiiragi instructs him to hurry and change into his uniform, asserting her seniority by stating she has a lot to teach him before the cafe opens. Kazuma respectfully thanks his senpai. She expertly takes orders for pasta and iced coffee. She politely manages a crowded entrance, apologizing for the wait. Hiiragi handles payments with a cheerful and professional demeanor. Now in his butler attire, Kazuma observes Hiiragi at work, surprised at how different she is from her classroom persona. He realizes she isn't pretending, she genuinely seems to be enjoying herself, looking lively and spirited. He resolves to keep up so he doesn't slow them down. After a busy lunch rush, an exhausted Hiiragi slumps over the counter. Kazuma asks if it's always this hectic, and she confirms it is during lunchtime but that it will quiet down later. He acknowledges how tough it must be for her to juggle the job with her dance club activities. Hiiragi quickly recovers, boasting that she's a genius and can handle it easily. She then surprises Kazuma by complimenting his quick movements, admitting she was amazed and questioning if he was really a first-timer. She tells him that far from being a hindrance, he was super helpful. Her own comment seems to catch her by surprise. Hiiragi suddenly changes her tone, questioning why they are being so friendly with each other and insisting they are supposed to be enemies. When Kazuma asks why, she points out that because he broke ties with Ryua, he is now their enemy. Kazuma calmly confirms that he cut ties with Ryua but clarifies that this doesn't mean he's against Hiiragi and her friends. He reminds her that she also stormed out of their karaoke gathering. Hiiragi presses him, asking if he must hate them. He simply replies that he doesn't. Kazuma speculates that the whole situation was orchestrated by Ryua. Hiiragi is taken aback by his deduction. He asks Hiiragi if she was just following Ryua's orders, and she hesitantly confirms it. Unexpectedly, Kazuma tells her that despite this, he has come to admire her. He explains that he admires her efficiency and thoroughness at work, and asks if she would teach him more. He formally addresses her as Hiiragi-senpai, catching her off guard. A flustered Hiiragi reluctantly agrees to train her junior. With newfound confidence, Hiiragi declares that she will be a strict teacher and tells him to prepare himself. Kazuma agrees readily. She then mentions she has a question for him, and his butler-like response to ask away makes her chuckle. Hiiragi asks why he switched with her to serve the last male customer who came in. Kazuma claims it was because the dishes were piling up and he took the easier task, but she immediately calls him a liar. She insists that based on his work ethic, he isn't the type to take shortcuts and that there must be another reason. Kazuma admits that the customer was there specifically for her. He had noticed the man's suspicious behavior, including taking secret photos and fiddling with his bag. Hiiragi confirms her own suspicions about the man, and Kazuma is amazed she realized it just by looking. Kazuma then wonders why she doesn't use her usual boldness from school to deal with him. She sadly replies that she can't. Hiiragi explains with a sigh that she can't confront him because he is a customer. Kazuma calls her too serious and makes a proposal. From now on, whenever that customer appears, she should let him know and he will handle it. Touched by his offer, Hiiragi blushes and thanks him. She thinks to herself that Suzuki is a kind person. At that moment, the cafe's door chime rings. She turns to greet the new arrival. The new customer is Amin, who cheerfully greets both Kazuma and Hiiragi by name. She explains she heard Kazuma got a part-time job and just had to come see for herself, leaving Hiiragi speechless with shock. Realizing this is a bad situation for Hiiragi, who is frozen in panic at being discovered by a schoolmate, Kazuma quickly intervenes. He tries to dismiss Amin's presence as Hiiragi's imagination and urges his senpai to go take her break immediately. Kazuma serves Amin her cream soda. She comments on what a lovely place it is. She explains that she has a big job later and came to recharge by seeing him. She adds that the cream soda is delicious and seeing him in a tuxedo helps too. Amin happily enjoys her drink, declaring she is very happy. Kazuma tells her he's glad to hear it. He asks how her voice acting career is going, and she proudly announces that she has secured 3 regular roles, thanks to everyone's support. Amin quietly asks if Ryua has been by, but Kazuma says he hasn't told her about the job. Amin seems relieved, mentioning that Ryua is on an unusual 2-week break, and she was worried Ryua might be planning something. She warns Kazuma to be careful and he thanks her. Amin then realizes the time and says she needs to go. As she gets ready to leave, Amin gives Kazuma a sudden hug. Kazuma looks on, slightly bewildered. She pulls back, declaring with a bright smile that she's now fully charged and her power is at its max. Amin leaves, thanking him for the treat. Kazuma reflects on how much she has brightened up. He thinks that since leaving Ryua and her former agency, she seems to have found her true self again. With a determined look, he resolves that if Ryua tries anything again, he will be the one to stop her. Having witnessed the entire interaction from a distance, Hiiragi is stunned. She wonders about the relationship between Kazuma and Amin. She recognizes Amin as a popular voice actress from their school. She recalls hearing rumors about them being close, which she had dismissed as false until now. Hiiragi feels a sense of relief that Kazuma didn't reveal her secret job to Amin, but acknowledges that they seemed very close. A new thought forms in her mind: Suzuki is a really good guy. Meanwhile, on a YouTube stream, Ryua greets her large audience. She shares that she recently learned from a close friend how important it is to work hard. Ryua explains that this realization made her think about what she should work hard for. She concluded that she needs power to protect those important to her. She happily announces that her grandfather supported her decision. Because of his help, she will be taking a 2-week break to go on a trip with him. She tells her viewers she wants to make her grandfather happy, but worries he might get too excited. She signs off by encouraging everyone to work hard with her. The comments section is filled with adoration and support from her fans. A week into his new part-time job, Kazuma Suzuki is changing. Suddenly, the door opens. Hiiragi, his co-worker, walks in on him and they both freeze in surprise. Hiiragi lets out a shriek, flustered by the unexpected sight. She scolds Suzuki, calling him an idiot for changing in the open. He calmly explains that he had no choice, as the only changing room is for women. After quickly getting dressed, he assures her it's safe now. Once the initial shock passes, Hiiragi's concern shifts. She asks Suzuki if he's okay, but he seems confused by her question. She hesitantly clarifies that she's asking about his back. She mentions the numerous scars she saw earlier. He reassures her that they're from a long time ago and that he's fine now. Still flustered, Hiiragi can't help but comment on his impressive physique. She admits she couldn't tell how built he was when he was fully dressed and asks if he was in any clubs. She also wonders if he underwent some special training. Suzuki denies being in any clubs, simply stating he did some training in the past. Suzuki playfully teases her, asking if she's interested in a man's body. Hiiragi immediately becomes defensive. She loudly proclaims that she's used to such things and has a boyfriend. Playing along, Suzuki apologizes, remarking that he forgot she was an experienced adult in matters of love. His comment only makes her more flustered. Putting the awkward moment behind them, Suzuki formally asks his senpai to guide him for the day. Regaining her composure, she accepts her role as the senior employee and tells her junior to follow her lead. Later, after the lunch rush has subsided, the cafe is much calmer. The manager had to leave early due to a cold, but things are under control. As Suzuki prepares to tackle a pile of dishes, he overhears a commotion from the dining area. One of the customers crudely tells Hiiragi that his order is her. A group of boisterous customers is harassing Hiiragi, inviting her to go for a drive. Observing from a distance, Suzuki recognizes them as textbook troublemakers. He trusts that the supposedly experienced Hiiragi can handle the situation smoothly. However, Hiiragi is clearly struggling, unable to assert herself as she pleads with them. Her flustered reaction only encourages their laughter. Suzuki watches with concern, wondering what's wrong with Hiiragi. He wonders if she's holding back because they are customers. The man suggests they take a quick peek under her skirt. The situation escalates as he reaches for her skirt, suggesting she wore it short because she wanted to show it off. Terrified, Hiiragi backs away, begging him to stop. The men become more threatening, boasting about their friend being a karate master who could get violent. To prove his strength and intimidate her, the leader grabs a glass bottle. He declares his intention to break it with his bare hand. He attempts a dramatic karate chop, but his bravado is short-lived. He fails to break the bottle, which slips from his grasp and flies across the cafe. Before the bottle can shatter on the floor, Suzuki calmly catches it. The man's friends laugh at his failure, but he tells them to shut up. Annoyed and embarrassed, the aggressor yells at Suzuki to bring the bottle back. Suzuki's expression hardens as he turns to face them. Suzuki walks over to their table, bottle in hand. Hiiragi looks on, a mix of fear and anticipation on her face. The man angrily confronts him. Suzuki looks the man dead in the eye and simply tells him to watch. In one swift, precise movement, Suzuki brings his hand down, cleanly slicing the top of the bottle off. He calmly disposes of the broken piece, leaving everyone completely stunned by the display of skill. The other patrons in the cafe erupt in awe and admiration, impressed by what they just witnessed. Hiiragi stares at Suzuki, speechless and amazed by his hidden strength. The troublemakers are momentarily stunned into silence. The leader, recovering his nerve, gets angry and claims that just cutting a bottle doesn't prove anything. Unfazed, Suzuki coolly replies that his strength should be obvious. Before the man can react, Suzuki delivers a swift, precise strike to his throat. The man gasps for air. He collapses backward onto the floor as his friends look on in shock. Suzuki calmly addresses the fallen man, informing him that while he won't be able to speak for a few days, he'll recover. He then offers to cover their bill from his own paycheck as compensation. Leaning down, Suzuki whispers a final, menacing warning to never return or bother Hiiragi again. The terrified man can only nod in agreement. His friends quickly help him up. The group makes a hasty exit. With the troublemakers gone, Suzuki turns to a shaken Hiiragi and asks if she is all right. He praises her for holding on. Overwhelmed with relief and emotion, she looks up at him with tears in her eyes. She wordlessly buries her face in his chest. Clinging to him, Hiiragi calls him an idiot for showing off. She insists through her tears that she was about to handle the situation herself and that he interfered. In response, Suzuki gently pats her on the head. The other customers break into applause, thanking Suzuki for dealing with the disruptive group. They express their satisfaction at seeing the troublemakers dealt with. One of the regulars remarks how lucky Ayacha is to have such a wonderful boyfriend, causing Hiiragi to look up in startled confusion. Embarrassed, Hiiragi frantically denies that Suzuki is her boyfriend. The other patrons just laugh and tease her about how cute she is when she blushes. Nearby, another customer who had been sitting alone watches the scene unfold with a pensive expression. After the cafe has emptied, Suzuki apologizes to Hiiragi for the misunderstanding with the regular customers. She quickly dismisses his apology. She says she should be the one to say sorry for what happened earlier. Suzuki tells her he'll be right back, explaining that one of the customers who just left seems to have forgotten something. Hiiragi acknowledges him as he prepares to leave. As he heads out the door, Hiiragi is left alone with her thoughts, lamenting her inability to express her true feelings. Outside, Suzuki catches up with the lone customer who had been observing him. He calls out, telling the man he forgot something. The man recognizes him and thanks him for his thoroughness. However, the man seems puzzled, checking his pockets and confirming he has his keys, phone, and wallet. Suzuki calmly asks if that is so. Suzuki then presents a small black object, revealing it to be a bugging device he found attached under the man's table. The customer feigns shock and warns Suzuki to be careful. Suzuki is not fooled, stating that the man seems far more dangerous than the three thugs from earlier. The customer asks what he means. Suzuki explains that while everyone else was distracted by the fight, he noticed this man was the only one looking down. The man claims he was just scared and didn't want to make eye contact. Suzuki doesn't believe him, pointing out that he looked very calm. He notes that the man reached under his table at the exact moment the bottle was sliced. With a glare, Suzuki calls the man a rat. Realizing he's been caught, the man's demeanor shifts and he bolts. He attempts to flee down the alley. Despite the man's surprising speed, Suzuki easily catches him. The captured man reveals he knows about Suzuki's connection to the Takashi family, confirming that the rumors about the strength of the 10 elites are true. While working at the cafe, a maid sighs, thinking about how incredible Suzuki was earlier. She wonders about his true identity, noting that he hardly stands out at school, yet he's competent at work and even managed to scare off thugs. Moreover, she blushes as she recalls how kind he is to someone like her. She resolves that she needs to properly convey her feelings to Suzuki when he returns. The scene then shifts to an alleyway where a man is being confronted. The man acknowledges that the rumors about the strength of the Takashi family's 10 elites are true. Suzuki confirms his suspicion that the Takashi family is pulling the strings and ordered him to eliminate the women around him. The man refuses to answer, sweating under Suzuki's glare. Suzuki dismisses him as a useless rat. He then tightens his grip. Suzuki crushes the bugging device he found and tells the man to go back and warn his employer not to snoop around him. The man protests, saying he can't possibly return. He explains that there's no place for him in the underworld if he goes back after failing his mission and being humiliated by a high school kid. Suzuki calmly asks what he intends to do. The man decides to take his chances, pulling a knife. He figures if he defeats Suzuki, his name will rise in the underworld. Alternatively, he smirks. He could harm the cute maid to win Ryua's favor. Suzuki's expression darkens at the threat. With a new plan, he lunges forward to attack. Suzuki effortlessly blocks the knife attack with his arm. In a swift motion, he sweeps the man's feet out from under him. The man crashes hard onto the pavement. Pinning the man to the ground with his foot, Suzuki states that he'll let him off this time. He advises the man to cut ties with the Takashi family, just as he did before walking away. Suzuki returns to the closed cafe. He reveals a handful of bugging devices he found, remarking that multiple were planted as expected. He crushes them under his heel, glad he could collect them before Hiiragi noticed. Just then, Hiiragi calls out to him. Hiiragi cheerfully announces she's finished cleaning the kitchen. She asks Suzuki about his progress, and he confirms he's just finished as well. She proudly shows off the shiny kitchen, mentioning that Hiiragi always insists on thorough cleaning. She then shyly asks Suzuki if he'd like to have some tea. Suzuki agrees, and they sit together at the counter. Hiiragi asks him why he decided to get a part-time job. Suzuki explains that he wanted to try doing something normal for a high school student, as he has always been busy taking care of that pig and couldn't do normal things. Hiiragi lets out a small laugh. Hiiragi laughs, remarking that he actually calls Ryua a pig. She adds that he is probably the only person in the world who would say that to the Takashi's grandchild. Suzuki then turns the question back on her, asking why she works part-time since her expensive brand items suggest she isn't struggling with money. Hiiragi seems taken aback by the question. Hiiragi confesses that all her branded items are fake. She explains they are second-hand, and so cheap they could be bought with a grade schooler's allowance. She admits the truth is she has no money and is struggling because her dad isn't around. She started working part-time to help with living expenses. She admits she's a show-off who couldn't say anything about her real situation, always trying to seem different and not ordinary. She continues to confess that her claims of having a college boyfriend and being experienced are lies as well. Everything about her is a lie. Suzuki quietly asks why she is telling him all of this. Hiiragi admits she doesn't know, but she felt she wanted him to hear it. Clutching her chest, she says that when she lies to him, it hurts right there. She apologizes for being selfish after what happened at karaoke. Suzuki recalls that back then, she was the only one who wasn't laughing at him. He asks if there was a reason for that. With tears welling in her eyes, Hiiragi confesses it was like seeing herself. Hiiragi explains that while she once called Suzuki Ryua's slave, she is the real slave. To be seen as upper class, she clung to Ryua's entourage and got angry to please those around her. So when Suzuki tried to dress up and fit in with the upper class, she couldn't laugh because she thought he was just like her. She apologizes to Suzuki, calling herself the worst. She admits she selfishly compared herself to him and treated him coldly. Full of insecurities and just a show-off, she confesses that she really hates herself. Suzuki simply responds that he sees. Despite her confession, Suzuki tells her that he respects her. A shocked Hiiragi asks what he's talking about. She points out that everything is a lie. She has no boyfriend, no money, and only got her dance scholarship because she's part of Ryua's entourage. Suzuki calmly tells her that's not it. Suzuki explains that things like the scholarship, boyfriend, and brands don't matter. He respects her because she's a serious, hardworking maid. He tells her that not just anyone can do what she does. He declares that she, Hiiragi Ayacha, is the most remarkable and wonderful maid in the world, causing her to blush deeply. Flustered, Hiiragi tells Suzuki he shouldn't compliment girls so much because it's not fair to his girlfriend. Suzuki is confused, asking what girlfriend she means. Hiiragi clarifies she's talking about Amin, asking if they aren't dating. Suzuki plainly states that they are not. Hiiragi notes that Amin seemed really into him, and being popular and cute would make a great girlfriend. She asks why they aren't dating. Suzuki replies that he hasn't thought about it, but he doesn't want to like a girl just to brag to someone. Hiiragi is once again struck by his words. She thinks to herself that he's saying cool things again. Hiiragi processes the fact that he isn't dating anyone. Gathering her courage, she begins to ask in that case what about her, but just as she speaks, the cafe door opens, interrupting the moment. Ryua Takashi stands at the entrance, greeting Kazu and calling Hiiragi a thieving cat. She explains that she came because her servant stopped contacting her and the signals from the bugging devices disappeared, just as she'd expect from her Kazu. She asks if he now understands how hard she's working for him. Suzuki asks who they are. Ryua explains that she's worked hard and borrowed a special piece from her grandfather. She introduces her companion, Rei Hinokamai, the new 10 elite of the Takyashiki family, who is small but super strong. Suzuki internally notes that this newcomer is quite capable. Ryua says there's no need to use an elite against a weakling like Hiiragi, but she brought one just in case to crush any obstacles in their love. He wonders what this pig is going on about. Ryua then turns her attention to Hiiragi. With a menacing expression, Ryua confronts Hiiragi, demanding to know why she is making a move on her Kazu. A shocked Hiiragi asks how she found this place. Ryua scoffs, replying that she has known for a long time that Hiiragi works there. Ryua gloats that all of her classmates are thoroughly investigated. She reveals she knows everything, the fake brand items, the imaginary college boyfriend. She says Hiiragi's act was amusing, but now it's a no-go. She states that she can't stand girls who try to get close to Kazu. Leaning in close, Ryua declares that it's war. She threatens Hiiragi, suggesting her scholarship could be revoked. She adds that perhaps Hiiragi could even be expelled. She questions if Hiiragi even has the right to approach Kazu now. Ryua accuses Hiiragi of looking down on Kazu at karaoke and now trying to get close to him. She calls her a lying woman. Suzuki steps in, telling her to stop. He says he doesn't hold a grudge against Hiiragi and reminds Ryua that she was the one leading the scene back then. Ryua yells at Kazu to be quiet, declaring this a conversation between women. Rei steps forward to block him. She turns back to Hiiragi and cruelly mocks her lies. She recounts the story she told before about a date on the bay, a drive home, and a goodbye kiss from her boyfriend. Ryua laughs maniacally, saying the story was so ridiculous she struggled to hold back her laughter.